Colin Gray is on trial for murder, charges connected to a school shooting, yet Colin was not even at the school when it happened. He's a single dad of 3 children. One of those children is Colt Gray, a teenager who authorities say shot up his school, killing 4 and wounding 7 others. Now Colin has been accused of purchasing the murder weapon. Prosecutors say he did it even after being told about his son's prior threats. It is a courtroom filled with both sorrow and anger, and tonight we have the latest from this high-stakes, controversial trial. But first, another day and still 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie remains missing. It's the biggest true crime mystery in the nation, and there is seemingly a lot of evidence, including video of her abductor, the man behind the mask. Was he working alone, or does he have an accomplice? Why did he take Nancy Guthrie from her home? Pressure is mounting each day now on law enforcement to solve this case, find a suspect, and bring home Nancy. Tonight, we take a look at all the new developments, including reports of polygraph tests being given to clear people as the search for Nancy continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments, and we continue our coverage of this story everyone is looking for an answer to. Of course, we're talking about Nancy Guthrie, and none of this makes any sense. Like, does any of this make sense? Does this guy make sense? Does his outfit make sense? His Walmart outfit? Grabbing a potted plant? Gun dangling? It's borderline absurd, but he hasn't been caught. Doesn't seem like this is something he's done before. Spent 41 minutes inside. Like, she's 84 years old. This doesn't happen. 84-year-old women, 84-year-old men, they don't get kidnapped. They don't get abducted. This again, it is not making any sense. And an abduction, like, you took her, why? Like, why? Well, the obvious answer always comes back, well, for ransom, right? Her daughter's rich. Her daughter's rich and famous. She's got $1 million house. You know, she's living by herself. She's vulnerable, so we're going to take her and hold her for ransom. But if that's the case, the kidnapper or kidnappers have made no direct contact with the family, which again gets back to this makes no sense. If you're going to kidnap someone and you're kidnapping for ransom, you know, there's a little back and forth. We've seen that movie how many millions of times? But no communication. Alleged communication from someone who alleges to be the kidnapper to the media, to TMZ. Again, this makes no sense. It just doesn't. Meanwhile, think about the number of law enforcement officers on this case. Pima County, still looking for help. They've got hundreds of men and women on the case. The feds are in this, the FBI. And they're still looking for help. They're looking for tips. They're looking for videos. They're looking for something. It makes no sense. How could that guy that we see on that video be that elusive and that good at kidnapping? It doesn't make sense to me. But here we are. Here we are. So there's been actions by law enforcement, right? Following up leads and tips, etc. One of the big ones was over last weekend, and we're getting a little more information about that. Remember, last weekend they raided a house, but they also seized a vehicle, a Range Rover. So this is in the Culver's parking lot. 2 people were in that Range Rover. It was pulled over. They were detained. They were released, but the Range Rover was seized. Like, what led to the warrant to seize the Range Rover? What led to the warrant to go inside of that house? Well, we're getting at least some confirmation now about the driver of that car. And this is from 12 News. 37-year-old Luke Daly and his 77-year-old mother were both removed from their home 2 miles away from Guthrie's home in the hours of February 13th. Daly's attorney in other unrelated criminal cases, Chris Salepi, issued the following statement. Salepi Law can confirm that Luke Daly was the subject of 2 search warrants issued and served on February 13th, 2026. Mr. Daly and his mother were both detained by law enforcement while the search warrants were being executed. Neither Mr. Daly nor his mother were arrested in connection to this case or any other. Mr. Daly has no link whatsoever to Nancy Guthrie and has no information related to her kidnapping. Like the entire Tucson community, both Mr. Daly and his mother are hopeful that Nancy will be returned to her family unharmed. And the 2 warrants, one was for the car, one was for the home. One was for the Range Rover, the other's for the home. So what, again, something led them there, right? So they had to get there somehow. Is this dead in the water at this point? Like, the lawyer's just putting it to bed. Like, of course, that's what he's going to say, even if the person was involved, but the person wasn't arrested. But they took his truck. They went in the house. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining me tonight, former sex crimes prosecutor Stacey Honowitz. Also with us, criminal defense attorney Cindy Rushing, and finally, trial attorney Marlo Greer is here as well. Great to see everyone. Big picture here. Is any of this making sense to you, Stacey?
No, I mean, we've discussed this in the past. Nothing makes sense in this case. And unfortunately, what we keep seeing is these leads that turn into nothing. But, you know, Vinnie, very early on, we were talking about why it's so important that the public, that we keep it in the press, because the public has an interest. And most of the time, a lot of these cases, it's the public that's helping to generate these leads. Maybe they know something, maybe they have a tip. And as a result of this tip or this lead, you need the manpower to go and investigate each one. And that's what the issue is here. There are thousands upon thousands of tips in this case, but is the manpower there? We know we have the sheriff's office and we've got the FBI, but is that enough to track down all of these things that are coming in? So when you ask the question, does this make sense? Of course it doesn't. We're 2.5 weeks in with nothing. And so every single day we are waiting and waiting for something to come to fruition. But right now, we thought the DNA was maybe going to be a hit with CODIS. That's, you know, right now that's gone. That didn't amount to anything. But it's my understanding that they are going to do genealogy. Maybe they're going to do trace DNA. The case has to keep going, and they have to keep relying on the public to submit any information that they might have.
We're getting close to 3 weeks here, Sydney. And there's a lot of law enforcement power being invested into this case with no results yet. Do you think what happened here with the Range Rover and the home is the beginning of something or a dead end?
So I think it's the beginning of something. So just because the attorney says that they have not been arrested in connection with this, that doesn't mean they've been cleared of it. Obviously, they've taken in the vehicle. They're going to be doing, you know, data or DNA searching on that and all kinds of, searches. Same thing with the house. But just because they haven't issued charges yet doesn't mean that they're completely clear. They may not have enough to arrest them at this time. But again, after putting, you know, all these things together, they may come up with enough probable cause to arrest them. This could lead to somewhere. But again, like you said, we're almost 3 weeks in. There's all of this manpower going in, and we have nothing. They have nothing to go on. I think that's making this very difficult.
And I think about what it wasn't just a home here, Marlo. It was a home and the Range Rover. So I'm wondering if maybe the Range Rover, maybe it was out the morning that she disappeared, and maybe it drove through the neighborhood or past the neighborhood, and that was part of the reason for this stop. Do you think that's possible? Because it was a vehicle and a home.
Well, I think what also doesn't make sense is Range Rover guy going to shop at Walmart? I mean, there is a Target, right, in Pima County, but You're right. None of it makes sense. The only thing that you could think of is going back to the public and the neighborhood. It could have just been a neighbor tip that said, hey, there's this guy down the street. He's kind of creepy. I think he has a criminal background. Maybe you should check into him. And so they do some digging and potentially get that warrant, take the Range Rover away, and they're going to take a while to search it. We don't know what's going to happen after they search it, but it really could just be as simple as that, is that they're looking for people to narrow down near the neighborhood. Like you said, why her? Why go to her house? She's 84 years old. So is this a crime of opportunity where there's somebody that knows her in the neighborhood and somebody else, another neighbor, gave a tip and said, hey, this dude's weird. Check him out.
Now, more information
Or Vinnie. Oh, sorry.
I have some more information for you. I'm going to serve it right up to you, Stacey. Luke Daly, this is according to 12 News, Luke Daly, the same man we're talking about here, may be a familiar name to law enforcement in southern Arizona, served a 1.5-year prison sentence, 2019 to 2020, for solicitation of drugs, criminal damage, and flight from law enforcement convictions. Then in 2022, arrested, later convicted of drug distribution charges, sentenced to 4 years of probation, arrested again in early 25 by Marana police in possession of fentanyl and a gun. A probation officer has filed to revoke his probation, but a judge allowed him to continue on probation in the community. Luke Daly's DNA would be in CODIS because of his prior criminal history. There have been 0 confirmed DNA matches from any of the evidence collected. And to me, that's a big deal, right? This is someone who has a record, so his DNA would be a match. If they have DNA they're running against, his would be there. But apparently it wasn't.
Yeah, I know. And listen, the idea that the neighbors might have said, listen, this guy has a record, the police are going to be on top of that very quickly. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is you're going to be more suspect if you do have a criminal record and you're living in that neighborhood and you possessed a weapon. So they have to go down every avenue. And I would think that in the beginning of this investigation, like we see in many cases that don't even involve abductions, but just robberies, burglaries, where they go to all the neighbors, because most of the neighbors have Ring or Nest or some kind of video footage. That's probably the first place that they're looking at. Who was in the neighborhood? Who was driving by? Was there a car in the area? So this car might have been a drive-by, and they have to go down every lead or every tip they possibly can, because right now nothing is panning out. And so you have to be able to take every lead very serious. I mean, you really do. But again, you're fighting manpower, and you're against so many leads. There's only so much you can get done in a certain period of time. So that's what we're up against in this case. Time, because she's elderly, she's sick, she's on a pacemaker. So you've got that working against you, coupled with 30,000 leads and not that many people to be able to go over it. And then you're asking the sheriff every single day in these press conferences, what's going on? And his response is, oh, I'll get my team. I don't know if you saw it. Somebody asked about a pinky ring in the glove. And I was waiting for him to say, we're on it. We're looking at that. We're trying to decipher. And I heard him say, oh, well, I'm going to get my team on this 2.5 weeks later. So I think that's what people are very frustrated about on top of everything else.
So there's one other aspect of this Luke Daly. Again, presumed innocent, detained, not arrested. Lawyer says has nothing to do with this, and there's no indication that he does have anything to do with this other than the fact that he was stopped and detained and a seizure of his vehicle and a search of the house that he was living in. Take a look at Luke Daly and a sketch that was made by Lois Gibson. Now, Lois Gibson, very well-renowned sketch artist, worked for law enforcement for many, many years. But we know in this case the suspect was wearing a mask. So this was the rendition on the left that she came up with based upon, you know what I'll do? Take a listen to Lois here, explain how she came up with this sketch that, maybe looks a little bit like this guy.
Now, what I could see on this mask, I can see the eyes. I can see the philtrum area. I can see the hair right here. And I'm assuming he doesn't do a Hitler shave job with just hair here. The mustache goes all the way around. And then I assumed a lot of stuff, okay? I guessed, yes, guilty as charged. I guessed at everything that's covered by the face mask. But this is desperate.
So she concedes that, right, okay, there were certain things I knew, and then I sort of guessed at what he could potentially look like. And again, Luke Daly has not been charged. Yes, he was detained for a short while, was released, and has proclaimed his innocence and actually wants the suspect found. The reason I put that up, though, Sydney, do you think that had any, because it was everywhere, the sketch was everywhere. Do you think that had any influence on law enforcement in this?
Oh, for sure. Because like you said, they ran some of the DNA and some of the items they found, and they have nothing that's came out. Now they get this sketch artist who comes in, she's well known for doing this. She sketches this out, and then they run that against their database, and boom, it hits on Mr. Daly, who has a criminal history, who lives close, and of course now he does resemble this photo. And although she said she guessed on a lot, the resemblance is is uncanny. So I definitely think that this picture, the sketch, had a lot to do with how they found Mr. Daly to begin with.
So Marlo, and I want to go around the horn with this. 0 to 10, how close do you feel like we are here in all of this? And then explain your reason for your number. 0 being we are, as close as we were the moment this happened. 10 being, he's about to be caught.
Look, I still think we're at a 2. I think when you said none of this makes sense, that's how we opened this segment. None of this makes sense. And I think that's why we're still at a 2. The sketch, that's one heck of a guess, right? If it matches. And you can shoehorn anything in. Think about it. With what you gave us with a criminal history, he's a drug addict. And that's, possession of fentanyl, running away from the police. Those are very clear drug addict behavior. So can you then shoehorn in, oh, he's high on fentanyl, and so he grabs a plant. Maybe I'll do that. I'm going to cover my camera with a plant. Those things fit in. But do I really think we're close? I don't. I want to say we're close. I want to say we were close a week ago. You want to give this family hope, but it's just dwindling day by day.
Stacey, 0 to 10.
God, I hate to give it a number. I really do, because I'm hoping that maybe.
No, those
right
are the
now,
rules.
I
need a number here, Stacey.
Knowing what we know right now, I would have to agree with it too. Am I hoping that maybe they're keeping some things close to the vest, like we talked about the other night? Maybe he's not spilling all of the beans, letting all of this evidence out. My theory is, though, if he's going to abduct this woman and stay in the neighborhood, that kind of doesn't make sense to me either. Was he trying to rob her? Was anything missing from the house? All of these theories just keep going along. It doesn't make sense, Vinnie. It just doesn't. So right now, with what we know, I would have to say, under a 5, because we just don't know.
Sydney.
My outlook is even worse. I still think we're at a 0, to be honest. We have so many different avenues of what this is. First, it was an abduction. Then it was, potentially the family. Then it's potentially this other person. There's so much here. And I honestly feel like the sheriff is not doing enough. I don't think that he's not acting with haste, in my opinion. I think he's taking this as a very slow motion type thing. Maybe he hasn't dealt with something like this, especially on this level. But I still think we're at a 0. We have nothing, we're not any closer to figuring out what actually happened. How did she actually get out of the house? Where did, who took her? Why? Is there any, there's nothing. We have nothing. There's a lot of stuff, but nothing that's put together to even put us on track to try and get somebody.
Yeah. I'm always more optimistic. And for me, the fact that there was some DNA that they were able to get from inside the house that could be related, could be unrelated, could just be people that came over the house at some point that left behind some skin cells or something. I'm going to go 6.5.
Oh.
I really feel like
Okay.
They're moving on things. And I think the mounting pressure. And the federal assets. I don't know how well they're working together, but I think there's such a motivation for both the Pima County folks and for the FBI to be the ones who make the breakthrough. Like, it's almost like a pride thing at this point. And I know that sheriff has a lot of pride. So I feel like there's a little bit more happening, maybe a lot more happening than we know. But they have been pretty forthcoming with the things that have come up empty. So it's a tough case. All right.
I don't know, Vinnie. I think you got your fentanyl glasses on.
Think tank staying with us. When we come back, are investigators using polygraph tests? Plus, coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, we continue our in-depth coverage into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Is the person in the video the same person who wrote the ransom notes? Tonight, we investigate.
In 2021, Dee Warner vanished without a trace.
Dale Warner. He's accused of murdering his wife, Dee. Rumors of a troubled marriage spread throughout this small community.
She had contemplated divorce several times.
Now, after years of searching for Dee Warner,
her remains are found on the couple's property.
Sealed inside a welded shut storage tank.
We're still going to fight to the end to see that she gets her justice.
The hidden murder of Dee Warner. Live coverage weekday mornings on Court TV.
I firmly believe someone out there knows something. Someone out there saw something, heard something. We need that person to call us.
Has there been any evidence so far that Nancy is still alive, or is it just hope of investigators and the family?
There's been no evidence that she's not.
I kind of like that answer, right? There's no, like, proof of life for paying ransom, I get it, but, like, is there any proof that she's alive? Well, no, but is there any proof that she's dead? No. So I think in those cases, especially if you're the family, that's how you want the sheriff leading this investigation, that there is a chance rather than presuming death because there's no proof of life. Okay. Let me put this up, because the relationship between the sheriff and the family is very, very important. And sometimes it can be a difficult relationship, because we know investigations usually begin with the people closest to the victim. But we know this from the Pima County Sheriff Department. To be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings, and this is important, and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in the case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious, and are victims in the case. And then a little zing at the media, social media, and everyone else. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. Please, I'm begging you, the media, to honor your profession and report with some sense of compassion and professionalism. Okay, so the Guthrie family is cleared. And then, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, how and why were they cleared? Hopefully it's a thorough investigation, right? Alibi, devices, and my guess is, and I believe, because they're saying they're cooperative, that all this was given freely to law enforcement so they could just go through it and clear the family. But take a look at this from Brian Enton over at News Nation, posted on X. I've learned polygraphs have been performed to clear people in the Nancy Guthrie case. How about that? Polygraphs to clear people. The family's been cleared. Perhaps the family was polygraphed. And now we're hearing for the first time that the Pima County Sheriff's Department using polygraph tests. Here's what Jonathan Hunt reported on Fox News on Wednesday.
We can report that polygraph testing has been taking place here at the Sheriff's Department today. It is unclear at this point how many individuals have been tested or their identities. And the Sheriff's Office will not confirm at this point that the testing is related to the Guthrie case. But significantly, they did not deny that either.
And there's lots of uses for polygraph, right, at a Sheriff's Department. Sometimes it's just you have new employees and you want to screen them, and you're going to ask them tough questions to make sure that they pass, that they're not deceiving anyone. Here's what the Sheriff's Department actually said. PCSD has received various requests for confirmation of various topics, including working with Mexican authorities,
utilizing polygraph tests, specific video surveillance requests, financial analysis, etc. PCSD is not confirming or releasing any details regarding those topics at this time. So there's no proof that they're not doing it, but there's no proof from the sheriff that they are doing it. But there was reporting. You know, reporters get sources. Sources, you know, stay off the record because they're giving you information. Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with me, Stacey Honowitz, Sydney Rushing, and Marlo Greer. Okay, Sydney, what do you think about the family being cleared? Do you think it was polygraphs? And the bigger question is, like, our system of justice doesn't necessarily trust polygraphs. So how much do you put into polygraph testing to clear someone?
So I don't put a lot into polygraph testing. As you just said, like our system, we don't look highly upon it. Sometimes we can use it in our favor in negotiations or, you know, things like that. But it's not something that we really use as like heavy evidence. But what's important here is when they say that they're cleared, like you said, they have to have more here. There's alibis. There's, you know, they've got their devices that have them being at home during the time, you know, all their whereabouts. So if they did a thorough investigation, which of course I'm hopeful that they've done, that means they've dotted their I's, crossed their T's, and made sure that there's no way that anyone was involved. Now, they could have also the family could have given consent to search their phones to make sure there wasn't anything in there, to, you know, look at any of their other devices. So there's a lot that they could have done. So we don't really know what they did, right? But for them to clear them, to make that bold of a statement, obviously they've looked into it thoroughly.
Marla, are you comfortable with the use of polygraphs in determining whether someone should be a suspect or not?
I think it really can be used to clear somebody, not just what the polygraph says, but also being willing to take the polygraph test. So I think this is a no stone left unturned, which is really what we're hoping. And that's, I think what they did here is they had a wide net and they said, all right, fine, you weren't involved. Why don't you take a polygraph test? And they went ahead and they did those polygraph tests, and therefore maybe they said the family was cleared. But I agree that there's likely more to go with it than just a polygraph. But really, why not at this point?
So, Stacey, for viewers, Stacey, I want you to clear this up for viewers, because we never see the results of polygraphs in any trial. When I was a young prosecutor, a defense attorney tried to bamboozle me into stipulating to the results of his client before she'd been tested. Like, I said no. So why is there always all this talk about polygraphs when, like, you know, it's not evidence. It's not evidence that any court believes is reliable.
Well, listen, the courts have determined that it's not that reliable, but certainly it is used as an investigative tool, especially in something like this. As Marlo said, they've cast a wide net, and they've got to narrow it down. They've got to cut away at certain things. We've done this, we've done this, we've done this, check it off the list. And you know, Vinnie, everybody knows that in a case like this, the son-in-law was the last person to see her. So the family is the first people that they're going to go to investigate, to see what they know. And so it's not unusual at all. It's not that big of a deal for them to say that we've polygraphed the family or those closest or those that were there with her that day or in that, whatever it is. It could even have been that the family, in hearing all of these theories on social media, because it was rampant, as you recall, they had him handcuffed and prosecuted at some point. The family might have even said at one point, you know what, just polygraph all of us. We're willing to take a test. We're willing. We've turned over all our devices. You've got our computers. You've got our phones. You spoke to us. We've all given statements. You know what? Just polygraph us. So it's not that unusual in an investigation. In court, a court might say, listen, we can't lend this credibility for a jury to decide about this, but certainly we can use it as a tool, which is what they did here.
Yeah, it's the cliche in every movie. Give me a polygraph. I'll take a polygraph. I didn't do anything. Right? Okay, look at this from CBS News. Investigators have not ruled out that an accomplice aided the suspected kidnapper seen in the doorbell camera video outside the Tucson, Arizona home of Nancy Guthrie the night of her disappearance, according to Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos. Sydney, I've always believed that it's more than one person involved here. I think there may even be someone in the house at the moment we're looking at him here at the front door.
Right. I completely agree. I've always thought that this was a multiple person doing, just because of, again, like, how does this 84-year-old woman just come up missing if it's just one person that's walking her out the door or what have you? I've always thought it was a multiple person job. And honestly, it's weird to me. The other thing is there is off to the side of the front door is like a sliding glass door, like a sunroom type door. And it's shocking to me that if they really were just breaking into the house for like a home invasion type thing or a burglary, that they didn't use a side door, that they used the front door where there's a camera.
Right.
But I definitely think that there's more people. And is this person right here, you know, when he's pushing the doorbell, is that the distraction? He's getting Nancy to come to the door. Someone's breaking into the back. But yeah, I definitely think that there's multiple people here. I've always thought that as well.
All right, think tanks staying where they are. When we come back, the father of an accused school shooter, he's the one on trial before his son. He's also charged with murder. The latest from the courtroom next.
I knew it when my little girl just texted me. She's in middle school. She said, we're in lockdown. I'm like, God almighty, please tell me, brother, please tell me. Why do you think that? What was it? We're trying to get him into counseling. He just didn't fit in last year at high school, so we let him do online school. We brought him back into just doing normal school this year, and it was going okay.
That's not a good look. Not a good look for Colin Gray at all. Speaking with officers, his son, Colin Gray, allegedly shooting up the school, killing 4, wounding 7. But he hasn't faced his trial yet. His father on trial first. His father charged with murder. Charged with second-degree murder in this case. It's an aggressive prosecution. We've seen it with the Crumbleys in the Oxford school shooting in Michigan. That was a successful prosecution. And now, for the second time that I can remember, we've got a parent of a school shooter on trial. Let's take a look at what happened today.
Did you know what had happened at Appalachia?
At that time, I was only made aware that there had been an active shooter incident in which multiple people had been injured.
And what happened when you arrived at the residence?
Myself and Deputy Bazinet approached the residence. He knocked on the front door. I went to the side entrance near the garage carport area.
And did someone come out?
Yes.
Okay. And who was it that came out?
It was I believe it's Colin Gray.
And did you say anything to him when he came out?
I explained who we were and that we were there with the sheriff's department and that he was not free to leave at that time.
Did he say anything to you?
Yes.
What did he say?
I believe it was something along the lines of he knew something had occurred. His daughter had texted him saying that the school was on lockdown and he was hoping to God that his son hadn't done anything.
Did you ask him any questions about what was in the house?
Yes.
What did you ask him?
I asked him if there were any people, animals, or weapons inside the residence.
And what did he tell you?
He told me there was no other people, no other animals. There were 2 firearms located inside the residence.
What was your purpose to do at that time?
My purpose was to simply detain him until we had additional resources there to do whatever was needed at that residence.
Does the school have any issues with Colt and that online, or not the online, but the at-home learning?
He was not consistent with doing the assignments.
Did something specific happen in August of that year?
Yes. Our district has a program on all the school devices that monitor searches. And if words such as death or guns or drugs or any of those words sort of throws up a flag to the administrative staff and the counselors for us to follow up with.
And did that happen with Colt?
It did.
And what was the word that flagged?
The first word that flagged was abuse.
When was the search done?
The search was done on the night previously, I think. And then when we came in that morning, we saw the alert and we began to follow up on it.
Okay. And was there a second search after the word abuse?
Yes. It was how to kill your dad.
So what do you do about that?
Okay, if he's at school, we would immediately brought him in and talked with him. Since he was not at school, I attempted to get in touch with him, I guess by phone. I did not get a response. I tried to get in touch with his mom. We did not get a response, and so it was decided that we would send a resource officer from the school to the home to make sure that everyone was safe.
And what was your understanding of how things were at the home?
He found everyone to be safe. He talked with Mom, and then came back and let us know that everything was safe.
Do you know whether anyone ever contacted Colin Gray about what his son said?
I did not. I did talk with the mom, and Mom was aware.
Mom was aware, but do you know whether he was ever aware?
I did not talk to him.
There was a situation where he went into actually 2 different restrooms and used markers, and I think a pink marker. He defaced some chalk pens to do graffiti and different things. They were on the walls, the stalls, the toilets, and just sort of destroyed the bathroom that way.
Okay, so this was a little under 3 weeks after he started at the school?
Correct.
Did y'all ever determine what the wording was referencing or what it was or anything like that?
Not really. He was in ISS for 4 days, and we invoiced his parents to help pay for the painting.
Still with us, Stacey Honowitz, Sydney Rushing, and Marlo Greer. Marlo, this is new territory that we're seeing in school shootings, right? They've gone after law enforcement in these cases unsuccessfully. That doesn't work. To me, this is a much better approach in terms of creating awareness and deterrence, but is it going too far in prosecuting someone for something that someone else did?
I think it's very difficult. I don't know that it's going too far in that he purchased the gun for his son. I don't think he would be sitting there if that didn't happen. And I have a 14-year-old. 14-year-olds don't listen to anything that anybody says. But I'm certainly not going to give a 14-year-old a gun who is clearly having mental health issues. Also, I mean, imagine being that dad. You're on trial for what your son has done, but yet part of his search is, how do you kill your dad? It's a horrible position for everyone to be in. But I do think that it's a good position for deterrence. Give parents something to think about. Why would you do this? Why would you buy your son a gun? Why would your son have access to it? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, we all know that teenagers' brains aren't fully developed yet, no matter how many times they tell us that they are. They're just not. And you, as a parent, you have to be responsible, and buying a gun for your child simply is not responsible.
Go ahead, jump in there, Stacey.
We prosecute parents for negligence and for negligent endangerment when they leave their own gun around and the child finds the gun and does something. He's a principal in this. He bought the kid a gun. He had a shrine to Nicholas Cruz. He had these prior threats. I don't see what we're trying to argue here. He absolutely
well, it's murder.
Needs to be on trial. He's a principal in this case. He purchased the weapon. He, under the principal law, he procured it. He solicited. He's part and parcel, basically.
Right, but it is a murder charge, which makes it different than, you know, simply being negligent with your gun. This is much more serious, and I think it's a place where we really haven't been before, Sydney.
Yeah, so I practice in Oakland County, which is where the Crumbly case was out of, so I'm very familiar with it. This case literally, it almost mimics it to a T. But in this, up here, it was manslaughter, and it was a case of first impression. And the issue that I have with these cases are, what duty do parents owe to the outside world? right? They have a duty to care for their child, to, make sure their child is, taken care of and all of those things. But what duty does a parent have to somebody else in the world on behalf of their child? So obviously, I think this is a terrible situation. But even if that was dad's gun and dad had it locked up, if son went and got that gun somehow, is dad still going to be charged because son had access in some fashion or knew how to get access, and dad knew about the mental health issues? So it is this case is a little bit different because it was specific to where dad bought guns for the son. So that's a little bit of a key difference. But these cases are very they're very new, and it worries me a little bit because it's not easy to draw a hard line as to what would be prosecuted, what wouldn't. And his case and his son's case has not went forward yet. The person who murdered people, his case has not been forward. He has not moved forward yet. He has not been found guilty. But dad is being charged and put on trial now for those murders that his son has not even been found guilty of doing yet. In the Crumbleys, Ethan Crumbley pled guilty to all the charges, and then the parents' trials went about a year later. So this is different in that fashion, but it's a bit odd that dad's case is going first because we don't even know who. Because at this point, who did it?
Do we?
It's such a combination of factors here. I mean, the mental health, the prior threats, the shrine that was in his room, and the idea that you purchased a gun knowing, then you do have a duty to other people because your kid can go out and harm other people. Like that's exactly what happened in this case. So Sydney, I understand what you're saying. I know that there's a hard line, but I think in this case, you had so many factors leading up to the fact that they had every right to charge him with what they did.
And the trial continues right here on Court TV. Big thanks, Stacey Hanowitz, Sydney Rushing, and Marlo Greer. Thank you so much. We love having you on the show. When we return, something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour.
Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, as the search for Nancy Guthrie and her abductors continues, we take a look at the backpack. What did the kidnapper put inside of it? Tonight, we investigate.
This is the story of the Richins. Eric, a father of 3, met an untimely end. And Corey, his widow, wrote a children's book on grief.
She's also charged now with his murder. He was faced with betrayal and terror.
I know her innocence.
Is their story a tragic romance?
Or a twisted tale of grief?
The truth will come out.
The Grieffather murder trial. Live coverage begins Monday morning, 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. And arrested and released. Who is that? That is the man formerly known as Prince, or the former Prince Andrew, has been released after his arrest on suspicion of misconduct in public office. The police over there said the former Prince was released Thursday, was photographed in a car leaving the station near his home. About 11 hours after his arrest, he was released under investigation, meaning he has neither been charged nor exonerated. He was arrested early Thursday at his home by detectives investigating his ties to the late Jeffrey Epstein. Police said they had finished searching his home, but were still searching another property. Perhaps, finally, after all these years, some sense of justice. We'll keep an eye on it for you, folks. Right now, though, I need you to keep your eyes on the screen because we have a missing child who needs your help. This is Christopher Lee Butler. Christopher, just 12 years old, missing out of Corvallis, Oregon. If you see Christopher, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference, 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Corvallis Police Department in Oregon. We've got that number for you up on your screen right now. Let's see if we can get Christopher to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.